chunk it out into 5-year increments, you can see that it really is not that much time. And if you really screw up the first 5 years, chances are you're going to screw up the next 5 years. And then you're going to also try to scramble at the last 5, and you really won't get to where you need to be because you're going to be scrambling. Anyway, it's something that, of course, we've been talking about this week, is that becoming an automatic millionaire is possible as long as you have a lot of income and keep your expenses down. So we are continuing on with, I ended last episode talking through chapter 5, and I want to spend a few minutes talking about chapter 6 and chapter 7. Chapter 6, David talks about owning your home outright. Now, of course, I have to give a little disclaimer here. I don't think that people have to own a home to do well with money. You know, there are studies that show that some people can do even better by putting money into the market than buying and putting their money into a home. That equities over time may give a better return than putting money into real estate that is very volatile. And I just think that for me and for everybody else, that owning a home has to be your decision. Your decision. Your decision. And really only your decision. Don't let anybody persuade you to do something that you may not be comfortable with, because you guys know right now interest rates are very high on home ownership. And even though after many years you could refinance, that is true, I don't want you to get into something that you can't really afford. So, don't be pressured into, reading chapter 6 and thinking that you have to own a home outright. However, if you do choose to own a home and you want to own it outright, make sure first that your other debts are paid off. And then, of course, you could focus on owning your home outright. Okay, so just make sure you have everything in alignment, that you do this first, second, third, etc. Then maybe, of course, you could apply money into the home. And then finally on chapter 7, pay it forward. By automating, then David argues that you can spend less time on worrying about money and more time enjoying your life while you are young and while you are building wealth. And I think that is so true, that you could then concentrate on things like your friends and your family, etc., while you are still young. So now let me move on to the portion of this episode where I react to everything I read in the book, How to Become an Automatic Millionaire. Well, I have to agree with everything that I read in the book and all the points that I've made in this episode. I think that the core to my success has definitely been in automating my savings and my investing. So back in 2006, I did have a Roth IRA that I started. I still have it today. Every year I have put in the max. I never missed the maximum that the government can allow me to put into my Roth IRA. Well, maybe in the beginning I didn't max it out. It may have taken a few years in which to do that, but I did automate that process. I had systematic withdrawals from my checking account into my investments, so I didn't have to worry about it. We also automate our savings and investing through our 401ks, right? You don't even think about it. If you have a 401k, obviously you are, putting money in there from your paycheck, either into a pre-tax or post-tax bucket, and you don't even think was in my 20s and 30s, I really should have focused more time on thinking about my future. And if I did, then as I've shared this week, I would have probably put more money into the market, which would have meant I could have had more fun and spent more money in my 40s rather than having to sacrifice so much that I did. But again, you know what? I don't look back and regret anything, because my journey towards financial independence and your journey towards financial independence is yours alone and mine alone. If that makes sense, right? We can't change what happened in the past, nor should we think that we should be able to. We can only change how we feel about the past and manifest more positivity in the future when it comes to our money. So I definitely think that I should have focused more on that when I was younger. I wish I would have learned more about investment options when I was younger. I wish I would have had a safety net when I was younger. Instead, I had no safety net. I had no emergency savings in my 20s and my 30s, really. Well, by my 30s I did, but, you know, in my 20s, up until the bankruptcy, did I have savings? No, of course not. All I had was $40,000 of credit card debt. So, if I could go back, I would change that. But again, we can't go back, right? I'm just happy that when the pandemic came in 2020, I had positioned myself for that to happen. You know, there are going to be things in your lifetime that happen in the future that we don't even know about at this point, that because you've done all the work when you're younger, you'll get to that place. And I'll use the pandemic as an example, because in the year 2020, I was already with a company where I was working remotely part-time. Then they allowed us to be full-time remotes. So, you know, check that box. I didn't have to travel anymore. Check that box. I did not lose my job. Check that box. And I think I shared with you before that the company I'm with does well during economic downturns. That may not be the same for you, but that's why you should maybe have even more of a buffer of an emergency fund, because if you lose your job, you can fall back on that. And remember, I shared with you, I did refinance my mortgage rather than having it paid off when I was 50 years old at the advice of Susie Orman, because she said, you don't know what's going to happen, Evan. You don't know if you'll lose your job. And so, looking back, that did not happen, but what if it did, right? So, hindsight is 2020, but I did not know that I would have the good fortune that I had with my job, right? And so you always have to err on the side of, you know, building those safety nets for the what-ifs of life. So I definitely agree with that. I agree with clearing off your debts. That is very important as well. And I wanted to really end today's episode by sharing with you something that I don't think I've ever talked about on my channel before, but it goes in alignment with me reacting to the automatic concept of becoming a millionaire, and it is this. In my current job today in corporate America, I do training, and there's something that we train that is in the accounting space. And I remember years ago when I learned it, I didn't know anything about accounting. I never learned accounting in college. My fascination with numbers came as a result of, I think, the catalyst of me learning some basic accounting concepts so that I could train a certain application. And so the application that I was training is an automation type concept to help our clients from an accounting perspective. So without giving details of what that means, think of it like your checkbook. money and then you write checks, right? Or you set up payments against the checking account. And so what happens is you've got your balance, you've got outstanding payments, and there's a fluctuation there where, you may have outstanding payments that have not yet hit. And so you're constantly managing that, right? Well, within this application, we assign general ledgers to certain activity. And I started thinking it was so much like a checking account, like in personal finance, where, you guys are getting paid. And again, you have payments, and some of those payments might be your rent or your mortgage, or it might be your electric or internet or association fees or insurance or food, gas for your car. You can think of those as like general ledgers. And from an accounting perspective, you're balancing, from your build a budget. And if you assign those GLs, and then if you could print a report, it would take the guesswork out of making sure that you apply it on your build a budget in the right area. And that's how I really came up with the build a budget concept that I've shared with you on this channel. So for those of you that are new, if you go to my playlist, you'll see I have a couple episodes all about building a budget. And in the future, I'm going to revisit it because I think it's so important to understand the basics of a budget. And what you're basically doing is you are assigning activity against you getting paid to certain expenses, which you can think of as a general ledger. And at the end of the month and at the end of the year, you're netting it to zero. And that you have to, as I always say, see savings and investing as an expense. So when you have a line item in your budget and it's savings, that is an expense. Not that you pay to others, but you pay to yourself. And that is the open to buy savings and investing, the OTPSI, that I talk about so much on my channel. And so it's through this application and the training and the learning it and understanding how accounting really works, the basic principles, I should say, of accounting, has really then helped me in my own personal life with personal finance. And so I would like to end with that today, that, in terms of reacting to the book, everything I've shared with you this week about becoming an automatic millionaire is so true. And I would encourage all of you to do the same. But remember, as you go throughout your working career, your goal is to try to make more and more money every year. This may not happen unless you continue to make a little bit more every year, because what do you have to do? You have to beat inflation. Make a little bit more. Then build your budget. Make sure your expenses don't go up. They may go up, they will go up because of inflation, obviously, but don't add more expenses to it. But if you do add more expenses, try to make more money, right? You always have to be one step ahead of your own trajectory in the future that you're building to make sure that your OTPSI is as high